Before I dive into what this video is, let me tell you what it was going to be and what it became. Originally, this was a measured look at an indie game by a, at least currently, controversial content creator. A deep dive into whether the game stands on its own merits, or is just an excuse to bolster dev streams. My thoughts amounted to something like, the pixel art is decent and sometimes even the humor lands, but Heartbound often assumes we care more than we actually do, showing us flashbacks and characters so cryptic, we'll have no idea whether they're implemented well until the final release. Again, that's what I was shaping up to say. All of that changed when I did one area that seemed almost engineered to make you dislike this entire game. Actually, I'll go further. This level seems engineered to make you hate game preservation, because if that means preserving all games, it would include immortalizing this terrible, terrible segment. I do not wish anything bad on Pirate Software or the people who like his videos. If you're watching this and you enjoy Pirate's content, great. I hope you're not in the EU, but great. But I cannot in good faith say I enjoyed this demo. Though I do not envy the act Heartbound has to follow. It's clearly an Undertale-inspired game, down to even the sound effects. So of course it's going to be compared to not just Undertale, but games like OMORI, Deltarune, and One Shot. Games that have become so celebrated for their ability to tug at the heartstrings, any newcomer to this space should rightfully feel intimidated. Before we talk about the infamous part that changed my mind, I guess I should briefly talk about the other parts of the game, so you get an idea of just how much of a dip in quality it was, at least in my opinion. The mistakes start right at the beginning. We open with main character Lore, who seems like he was ripped straight out of a Friday Night Funkin' mod. Amidst a thunderstorm, he converses with his dog Baron and agrees to give him food late at night. Immediately, Baron gives off positive, upbeat vibes, a good foil to Lore's laid-back demeanor. Lore's dad yells at him to take the garbage out, and just to see what would happen, I put it in Baron's bowl. To the game's credit, I still feel bad about this. The sprite art isn't going to wow you, I don't think, but the character portraits in particular are expressive, detailed, and give us a more personal glimpse into the cast than most games like this would allow. Fun fact, the color scheme for this game is readable in all forms of color blindness, so no one is safe. Now you might be thinking, you said the mistakes start off right at the beginning. What were you talking about specifically? Well, the length. Because shortly after this, Baron disappears, and that's the hook for the rest of the adventure. Immediately we have some problems. The impact of losing your dog falls on deaf ears when we spend but a couple minutes with him before he's stolen. I'm just spitballing here, but can you imagine if maybe the first 30 minutes of the game were spent with your dog, letting you build that relationship up before it was taken away from you? Despite how much I'll lambast Heartbound in this video, the writing is competent enough to make such a segment not boring. I'll even admit I laughed aloud at several parts of the game though. Most of the time that was from the surreal facial expressions, not the writing. Spending more time with Baron at the beginning is not the objective solution to Heartbound's opening being good, but I do think it would have helped as there's no substitute for just spending time with a character. Shortly after Baron disappears, we solve some basic log puzzles and end up fighting this thing. I guess this is as good a time as any to discuss how the combat feels in this game. It doesn't. This is one of the only two identical fights you will have in the entire demo. Yes, you heard that correctly. Almost all of your time in Heartbound is spent talking to NPCs, playing dull minigames, or doing what amounts to chores. As for the few battles that are actually there, it plays like a really stiff Punch-Out, at least sometimes. Don't expect the freedom of movement you'd have in Deltarune where, irregardless of what's going on, you can move to dodge projectiles. What you're capable of doing in Heartbound depends entirely on what attack your enemy is dealing, which is a neat idea, and while none of the ones shown were particularly compelling, I could maybe see some banger minigames making their way into the final product. I do not think every game like this needs combat, but I can't count the amount of times it felt like battles could supplement what was going on. If you aren't going to add something in its place, its absence will be felt. As it stands, Heartbound feels like an RPG that retroactively had its battles removed, though I guess I'm thankful I didn't need to juggle random encounters in the tower section with everything else, so that's a blessing, and believe me, we'll get to that part. I'm not sure if what's present in the demo will be updated to include battles in the full release, or if we'll just see more areas we haven't visited, but currently, it's sparse. Sometime after this, the demo lets us choose between two different areas. I go with the Autumn one. You're given a whirlwind tour of Animus, a town populated by anthropomorphic animals. Some are funny, some are bashful, some are flirtatious, and some even grow on you. If anything, Animus was the part of the game that bolstered my hopes, making me believe that Pirate's vision of a unique RPG that breaks convention actually had some legs. And I appreciate the Austin Powers reference.
Hurt! Who throws a shoe? Honestly.
Tonally, it unsurprisingly has a lot of overlap with Undertale. There's an ominous through line that connects everything but is easily forgotten when you talk to the upbeat characters. Though the Animus section is not without its flaws, as we get more nothing burger cryptic messaging. As I stated earlier, we don't know how much of the seeds being planted here are actually good until we see the full story, but there's nothing compelling enough on its own here to make us want to know more. If we knew more about Lore himself, I think that'd have gone a long way in making me want to know the answers to these mysteries the game so liberally throws at us. I had some goodwill that some of them would be good. After all, we're only seeing a small slice of the game. Any goodwill I had for Heartbound died in the tower. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but it was really bad. Jesus Christ, where do I even begin? For one, I'm devastated at how devoid of fun this area is, especially given how cool everything looks. Red, black, and white as a color scheme has made many games beautiful, but you'll grow to loathe it here because the amount of backtracking is enough to make the 1,000-year door wince. I would rather play through the Humphrey part of Omorei 4 times back to back with a dance pad than so much as hear a soundbite of the song that plays in this level. Almost all of your time is spent combing over office cubicles, pixel hunting for golden objects, or talking to spread out NPCs to progress the plot. The criteria for advancement isn't exactly spelled out, so on multiple occasions you might have to walk all the way to the opposite sides of the floor again and again just to figure out what to do. And lore isn't exactly fast. There are mini-games here and they are not great, though I suppose that's kind of the point as they do express the mundanity of a day job well enough. Some of the dialogue is neat. The faceless, as they're called, have the occasional witty thing to say when interacted with, and for fleeting moments, they made me forget how much I hated this place. The final part of Heartbound's office section has you confronting your mom, and this moment had zero tension for me. There is absolutely no build-up to this scene aside one brief flashback seconds before the encounter. I do not know who this woman is, I have no reason to fear her, and while I would inhale her like flowers, lore hasn't given us a reason to care about her. She seems to be the source of a lot of lore's angst if the flashbacks are to be believed. I like the idea of the dad wishing he did more to help his son in these situations. There's a lot they could potentially do there, I guess. Often this demo feels like the last third of a full game, expecting us to be invested in things it hasn't even shown us. I get it, it's not the whole game. It has to set some stuff up. Perhaps much of the criticism in this video will be obsolete when, if, the game releases, but I can only go off what I see. There are so many moments in this game where lore resorts to a mental fetal position, saying stuff like, no, this can't be real, this can't be happening. Like, why? Like, what if an Omori demo released that was just 4 different scenes of Basil crying? Like, why would I care if we didn't introduce him properly first? Showing grief doesn't automatically make the audience feel that. Lots of people have wondered if the entire development of this game is just a poor excuse to facilitate videos by documenting its development. Do I think that's true? I don't think it started out that way. I think this began as a legitimate passion project, and to a lesser extent today, I think it still is. It's just that over the years, as streaming became a much easier and more reliable revenue source for Thor, he probably just eased up on development. I think he overplays how much he's working on it these days. The progress is glacial. It's been in development for almost a decade now. But still, it's a project close to his heart, and I wish him the best of luck, even if I think his take on video game legislation is ignorant. The toilet paper paper Thor wipes with has more success than I do, but on the insanely small chance Thor is watching this, I'd tell him it's fine to take inspiration from things you love, but when it's too overt, you invite very direct comparisons, and you're not going to beat Undertale at being Undertale. Be yourself instead, and develop those characters more. Subscribe if you hate, love, or are indifferent about Pirate Software. I'll be covering Chapter 4 of Deltarune soon. I'll see you there.